The first appointed Saudi envoy to Palestine has arrived in the occupied West Bank to submit his credentials to President Mahmoud Abbas. Naif bin Bandar al-Sudairi was appointed last month as Riyadh's first ever non-resident envoy to Palestine. The move marks an important milestone for developing bilateral relations between the two sides. He's also Saudi Arabia's first ever non-resident consul general to Jerusalem. Riyadh had a consulate general in Jerusalem until the Israeli occupation of the city in 1967.
Of course, the relations between Saudi Arabia and the state of Palestine are historical relations that began from the era of the late King Abdulaziz, then the sons of kings, until the auspicious era of the custodians of the two holy mosques. The interest of the Crown Prince in the Palestinian issue is not new, but he is keen for the region and the world to be in security and stability, because this is reflected in positive for all people of the world.
Let's bring in Mustafa Yavuz. Fatih, you've extensively worked on this story. This is an important visit by the Saudi delegation to Palestine. What is the agenda of the Saudis?
Well, Afnan, you're right. This is a, this is a very, very important visit by Saudi delegation to Palestine. First and foremost, this is the first delegation visit to Palestine since the Oslo Accord that was signed in 1993. And also it is happening amid warming ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The head of the delegation is Naif al-Sudairi, who is a cousin of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and also de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. Mohammed bin Salman. Also, Naif Sudairi is the envoy of Saudi Arabia to Jordan and also the non-resident envoy to Palestine, recently appointed, and also a non-resident consul general to Jerusalem. Today he was welcomed by Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad Maliki, and these two names gave a quick speech to media, and Riyad Maliki said that the Palestinian Authority and Palestinian people are very happy to see a Saudi envoy in Palestine. This is going to deepen their relations, I mean, both Palestine and also Saudi Arabia. And after that, Sudairi made a quick statement to the media as well. And he basically reiterated Saudi Arabia's position regarding Palestine-Israel conflict. And he said that Saudi Arabia is actually supporting a two-state solution and also, of course, establishment of a Palestinian state with 67 borders and also Jerusalem as its capital. And after this meeting, we are expecting the Saudi delegation to come to Jerusalem tomorrow, and most probably they're going to visit Al-Aqsa compound as well.
We also know that Saudi Arabia is in the process of normalizing relations with Israel. Will this have an effect on that?
Well, I think it's going to definitely have some effects on this normalization deal. It's better to remember right now, for the Arab world, Palestinian situation is actually representing the Palestinian Arab consciousness. And what Palestinians are saying is very, very important for Arab world, despite the fact that we cannot say the same thing for Arab regimes or Arab elites. But for people on the streets, what Palestinians are saying and the Palestinian cause is very, very important. That's why a normalization deal without the consent of Palestinians cannot be actualized for the Saudis. It's better to remember that there is a huge opposition in Saudi Arabia. That's why I think Palestinians are trying to get a clean green light from Palestinians to get their normalization deal done with Israelis. But of course, there are some conditions from Palestinian side as well for this normalization deal. First and foremost, Palestinians are actually looking for some status changes in some territories in occupied West Bank, which are called as Area C. Palestinians want some parts of those Area C to be changed as Area B, in which Israelis can still have their security control in this area, but Palestinians want this area and areas as civilian control to be handled by them. And another thing that, of course, Palestinians want a concrete consul general in Jerusalem. It's better to remember once again that the Saudi envoy is non-resident envoy in Jerusalem and also Palestine, but Palestinians want a real consul general in Jerusalem. These are some these are conditions that Palestinians want from Saudis, and I assume that they're going to talk about these issues today.
Well, you mentioned that Palestinians have welcomed the appointment of al-Sudairi. However, you didn't mention how Israelis are reacting to this development. Have you heard anything from Israelis on the latest series of events?
Well, when this report came out just a couple of months ago, Palestinians strongly against an establishment of a consul general in Jerusalem. This is what we know. But from the perspective of the normalization deal with Saudi Arabia and Israel, I think Israelis are also welcoming a Saudi envoy to Palestine, because many people are actually on the same page that Saudi envoy is actually in here for the normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel. As I said before, Saudis are trying to get the consent of Palestinians for this normalization deal. I think it is important for Israelis, but there are some issues, some challenges to this normalization deal because of what Palestinians are actually demanding. It's better to remember this. Benjamin Netanyahu's government is the most far-right government of Israelis' history, and those far-right names in the government strongly against an establishment of a Palestinian state. And of course, they're going to stand against this status changes that Palestinians are actually demanding for this normalization deal. These are the challenges I think Saudi Arabia and also Israel is trying to solve to reach a normalization deal. I'm not mentioning about what Saudi Arabia is actually looking for this normalization deal, such as nuclear plants that can be established in Saudi Arabia, and also, of course, some concessions coming from Israelis to Palestinians. There are lots of things to be discussed for this normalization deal, but I assume that Saudi Arabia is trying to, as I said before, get consent of Palestinians for the normalization deal now.
All right, Mustafa Fatih was live for us there in occupied East Jerusalem. Thank you for that, Fatih.